Poker YouTube, what's up? It's Nick from Arch City Poker, and this video today we're going to take a look at how to beat live low stakes poker in 2025. So I made a video about 8 years ago that did very well on this platform. I was surprised at how well it did as far as engagement, interaction, how many people reached out to me with essentially how much it basically inspired them to become a better player, I guess. But it was fun to compare and contrast what I was preaching then, what I know now compared to what I knew then, and I've thought it would be fun to actually remake a lot of the how to beat live low stakes poker videos that I made back then. It became sort of like a series. There were, I think, maybe like a part 2 and then like maybe a more narrowed down specific topic. But I think these somewhat impromptu conversations like this are far better for this platform and for you guys than a lot of like the really short strategic stuff. Because the strategic content, it's not that I won't put that up or Tony might not put some up, but we cover a lot of that on the training site and in much more depth. It's just a much better service on there for you guys. So I do implore you to visit archcitypoker.com, and that's where you will find an incredible amount of amazing content. But as far as this topic, how to beat live low stakes poker, 1-2, 1-3, 2-5. So going back to that video 8 years ago, I talked about how playing in position, entering pots with a stronger range than your opponent, that still applies. The majority of mistakes that the live low stakes population will make are going to be playing too many hands in too passive of a manner, especially from out of position pre-flop. So we do still want to enter the pot mostly in position, mostly with a stronger range than our opponent. But there are some things that have changed from 8 years ago. I've become much more efficient with my game, obviously, just working on it almost daily for since that point up until now. And with how improved solvers are, with how quickly we can adapt and learn new strategies, it's much easier to become much better a lot faster. And so my job as an instructor is to be able to make that content relatable, make it applicable to the game that you guys play with. And because a lot of times the solver heavy stuff is just too complex, it will put you in a spot to like essentially level yourself, and you're going to be burning money on the table in these types of games. So two main topics that I want to cover today as far as how to beat these games. We want to, one, become more efficient with our sizings pre and post flop. So Tony and I stress that we do want to be very mindful of position. So when we're out of position pre-flop, we actually like to use smaller sizings for the majority of our range. And then sometimes we will use some much larger sizings for like the top end of our range. Is that transparent or predictable? Yes, it can be, but our opponents, that's the beauty of these games, is that our opponents don't really counter that often enough for us to really worry about it. And if we do sit at a table where there is possibly a player that is more balanced, or he's just more aggressive or more skilled in general, and then he could exploit us, we'll sprinkle in a few combos, like speculative ones, into the large sizing strategy. And then we will add in a few of the premiums into the small sizing strategy. But for the most part, we don't really need to balance that. Our opponents are there to basically pull the lever on a slot machine. Pulling the lever or hitting a button is like limping in or limp calling or cold calling pre-flop, when they should be raising or 3-betting or folding the majority of the time. And when the little reel comes up with the 3-7s, they're hoping that that's essentially their version of hitting jackpot gold on the flop. So a lot of our opponents will treat poker like a slot machine, and they're not going to really care what sizings we use or what hand we played from where for the most part. So the nice thing is that we're able to build this loose aggressive image for as less risk and as cheap as possible by having the smaller sizings from out of position. And for the most part, we're going to use the types of hands within a range that are going to play really well with multi-way fields, like really hands that flop or have like nuttiness to them, like suited ace-x hands, pocket pairs that make sets, suited connectors that can make straights, and some two pairs or trips, or perhaps some flushes. You guys know this. A lot of you that are watching this, you're going to know that those are combos that do play well in those multi-way fields. But as we gain position, we are able to loosen it up, but especially when we get to the cutoff and button, the big difference from 8 years ago to now is I advocate for a lot of our students to really open their games up to be incredibly hyper aggressive from the cutoff, especially if the button and the blinds are not going to be a problem for you, and then especially on the button, we're able to overextend and play an incredible amount of hands for really large sizings a lot of the time against the limpers. And if we do face a raise, we'll mix in 3-bets, obviously. But this is more pertaining to 1-2 and 1-3 when you do get the limpers that perhaps are looking to limp call. We want to put them in a really poor position with really large sizings where if they limp call, their best case scenario is now they're in a bloated pot with an inferior skill edge and they're out of position post flop. So that's really what we're looking to do is we're looking to set ourselves up for post-flop success with our pre-flop decisions. If we want to invite players in and not overextend, and we want a multi-way field with a hand that'll play well in that spot, that will happen with the smaller sizings, and that'll happen from out of position a fair amount. But we're looking to get pots heads up as often as possible. And I talk about in the video 8 years ago how a lot of opponents have trouble with 1-2. They have trouble with ranging 1-2 and 1-3 opponents because those players don't really know what they're doing a lot of the time, and so like they'll take weird lines or they use weird sizings. If we can get pots heads up as often as possible, then we're doing our job as far as being able to realize our equity to the maximum and deny our opponent's equity to the maximum as well. And that's the second point that I want to get to is that, and this might be the most important, guys, I've learned over the years, it's all about equity realization. And what does that mean? Your equity, your share of the pot. If you are in position, it's much easier for you to deny your opponent's equity and for you to realize yours. So we're still, even though as we're building this loose aggressive image and we're potentially playing like some combos that you guys are either used to limping in with or just folding if you're possibly a little nittier. I'm talking stuff like ace-5 suited, 6-5 suited from under the gun. We want you involved with these types of hands, but we're going to put you in a position to succeed pre and post flop with those by not overextending, by including some smaller sizings. And then as we gain position, we're going to use that to our advantage and we're going to really bloat these pots and apply serious pressure. And what ends up happening is it's not that you're always going to be stuck with all these speculative combos from out of position, but we're going to be able to use some larger sizings than out of position. And when your opponent sees you play something a little more speculative in position for a large sizing, they're just going to assume that you're possibly doing that from everywhere. Oh, you're this perceived maniac. You're doing all these, you're opening with a wide range from everywhere, using all these really large aggressive sizings. It's almost like really, it's perception. Reality is like what they perceive it to be, right? And so we're going to build this perception that we are potentially hyper aggressive in a lot of spots, but really like we're playing a controlled, loose, aggressive strategy. And we're going to be fluid with our sizings pre and post flop, and we're going to put you guys in a position post flop to start to over realize your equity and as well as deny your opponent's equity to the maximum. We're going to do this with different sizings, more efficient sizings. And as I alluded to pre-flop earlier in the video when we talked about it pre-flop, we're going to talk about it post-flop as well, using much smaller sizings than you guys are used to in some spots, using much larger sizings like overbets in some spots that you guys are not used to. These are the things that we've picked up, that I've especially picked up over the last 8 years, that I am more than happy to share with you on the training site in much more depth. So yeah, essentially, we're still wanting to enter with position, enter with a stronger range, but we're going to help you guys become much more efficient with your sizings and take more aggressive lines pre and post flop. And that is going to significantly increase your win rate and lead to more fun at the table. So that'll do it for this first edition of the 2025 How to Beat Live Low Stakes Poker Series. Like this video, please, so that others can get a lot out of it as well, so they can see it. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you visit us at archcitypoker.com, where again you will have access to tons of content that is quite related to this video. So looking forward to seeing you guys in the next video on this platform, and looking forward to seeing those of you that come over to Arch City Poker. Thanks.